Hello and welcome to Cleveland Classic Cinema. Tonight's movie is 1942's The Mad Monster, directed by, once again, Sam Newfield.
In a forgotten mansion deep in a dismal swampland, a scientist, crazed by his lust for revenge, repairs the last detail of a diabolical death plan.
A few moments ago, Petro was a man, a harmless, good-natured man. Look at him now. He's no longer human. He's a wolf, snarling, ferocious, lusting for the kill.
The beast strikes swiftly, the first of 4 violent, fiendish murders. Into this crime-ridden situation, a reporter finds the biggest story of his career.
What should make a gory enough story for your paper? This is more than just a story to me. He was my friend.
Joined by the girl he loves, these two follow the gruesome trail of the Mad Monster. Every lead proves false. Then, one night, a strange, ominous power draws this girl to a rendezvous with death.
The Mad Monster is another one of those movies about a scientist, Dr. Lorenzo Cameron, who was driven mad by the dismissal and rejection of his fellow scientists for his tampering with nature, which is a one-way ticket to craziness in a movie like this. While some mad doctors have the betterment of mankind in mind when they tamper with things best left alone, Cameron seems to have a more jingoistic bent to his experiments. He dreams of creating an army of Wolfman soldiers to, quote, battle a savage horde that fights with fanatical fury. Just picture it, gentlemen. An army of wolfmen, fearless, raging, every man a snarling animal. My serum will make it possible to unleash millions of such animal men. Men who are governed by one collective thought, the animal lust to kill without regard to personal safety. Such an army will be invincible. For all his enthusiasm, Cameron doesn't seem to have thought this whole thing out very well. Yes, you could create an army of Wolfmen and turn them loose on the enemy, but if they were as savage as he envisions, what's going to stop them from just killing everything in their path, including civilians and other soldiers on the same side? Ah, Cameron explains, I have developed an antidote which returns them to normal. Now, if he could just come up with a way of rounding all of these wolf soldiers up and injecting them with said antidote, he might really be onto something, but he can't be bothered with such mundane details. He's more interested in sicking one of his experimental wolfmen on the 4 fellow scientists that humiliated him. So riddle me this, in what universe is this a good plan? Of course, Cameron is played by George Zucco, who pretty much had a lock on the insane scientist role and plays it with such aplomb that you never even question his goals, no matter how crazy they seem. I must admit that I kind of admired how director Sam Newfield managed to get all the exposition out of the way in the first 10 minutes of the film by having Cameron imagine his tormentors appearing around a table in his laboratory, which conveniently has 4 chairs arranged around it so none of his imaginary guests are forced to stand while he pontificates. And he explains everything so no valuable running time is wasted explaining what's going on. You know, this got me thinking, scientists must have really fragile egos. Repeated failures? No problem. Can't seem to chase that bug out of the formula? Yeah, I'll get it eventually. Get humiliated by your peers? Why, I'll kill all of them in the most convoluted, roundabout way possible while proving to them that I was right all along. All I need is some huge, normally harmless guy I can turn into a monster, like my gardener. This is the basic plot of so many Mad Doctor movies, you'd think they'd have a support group. If you haven't already guessed, there's not a lot to find out about this movie in researching it. It was just one of the many movies released by Producers Releasing Corporation, one of the more prolific Poverty Row studios cranking out B movies. So, on to the bios. George Zucco was born on January 11, 1886 in Manchester, England. He began his stage career in Canada at the age of 22, later appearing in American vaudeville with his wife in a skit called The Suffragette. When World War I started, he returned to Britain and joined the Army, seeing action and being severely wounded in the arm, which paralyzed 2 of the fingers and thumb of his right hand. After his discharge from the Army, he entered the London theater and began playing leading men. By 1931, he began acting in films, his first being 1931's The Dreyfus Case with Cedric Hardwicke. He appeared in 13 B movies before appearing in 1936 as The Man Who Could Work Miracles, and then went back to America where he found steady work on Broadway. His sharp features served him well, and he played a series of sinister roles, alternating between B and A movies, but always doing an excellent job. He was nicknamed One-Take Zucco while at Universal because of his professionalism. After appearing as Professor Moriarty in 1939's The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, he appeared again with Cedric Hardwicke in the same year's Hunchback of Notre Dame. It was around this time that he began to accept roles as mad doctors, and as you can see in tonight's movies, he enjoyed playing that character. He did a series of films for PRC, but still made A pictures for major studios. He suffered a stroke after making 1951's David and Bathsheba and retired from pictures altogether. Although his health was fragile, he still lived a dignified life until he passed away from pneumonia on May 28, 1960 in Hollywood, California. Johnny Downs was born John Maury Downs on October 10, 1913 in Brooklyn, New York. At the age of 8, he landed a role with Our Gang and performed with the troupe between 1925 and 1927 before moving into vaudeville as a song and dance man. He re-entered movies in the 1930s playing an all-American type as he does in tonight's film, in addition to starring in a series of shorts. He appeared in 100 films, and in the 50s, he hosted his own children's series, The Johnny Downs Show, in San Diego. He played Johnny Jett, an Air Force pilot who entertained the children between showings of Our Gang shorts. Johnny Downs died of cancer on June 6, 1994 in Coronado, California. Glenn Strange was born George Glenn Strange on August 16, 1899 in Weed, New Mexico. As a youngster, he taught himself how to play the fiddle and guitar and was raised as a cowboy, eventually growing into a strapping 6'5" man. In the 1920s, he and his cousin joined a group known as the Arizona Wranglers and began touring the country performing music. He entered films playing bits and such in many westerns before becoming a full-time heavy in hundreds of B westerns. In 1944, he made his first appearance as Frankenstein's monster in House of Frankenstein, and appeared in the role in both 1945's House of Dracula and 1948's Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. When movie work dried up, he moved to television and appeared as Butch Cavendish on The Lone Ranger, and then settled into his last and very steady role as Sam the Bartender on Gunsmoke, a role he played for 12 years. Glenn Strange died of lung cancer on September 20th, 1973 in Los Angeles, California. The Mad Monster is a passable film if you don't think about it too hard. The dialogue at the beginning is a little hard to understand as Glenn Strange has a habit of mumbling, but once Zucco settles into his mad doctor bit, everything falls nicely into place. Of course, he has a beautiful daughter who has an all-American boyfriend who is also, as a matter of course, a newspaper reporter. Petro, the huge but gentle gardener, is Cameron's guinea pig for his experiments. Like so many of the films we broadcast on this show, it's not a bad movie, but like I said, it isn't a good one either. It's also quite short, as B movies were, so stick around after it for a couple of shorts. Right now, it's time to sit back, relax, and enjoy The Mad Monster right here on Cleveland Classic Cinema.